Something happened at Wimbledon that nobody in the celebrity world was apparently willing to miss. And when you hear who was in those stands watching Alex play, when you understand the kind of people who were sitting there with their eyes on a 21-year-old from Quezon City, you're going to feel something that is genuinely difficult to put into words. Because this is no longer just a tennis story. This is not just a sports story. This is the moment when the world of film and fashion and boxing legend and tennis royalty all looked in the same direction at the same time. And the thing they were all looking at was a Filipino girl who used to train after school in ruffled socks and who just walked into the round of 16 at Wimbledon by beating the reigning champion in straight sets. Let that land for a second. The round of 16, Wimbledon. Against Iga Swiatek, the world number 3, the defending champion, one of the most decorated active players in the sport. Beaten. In straight sets. By Alex. And the people watching from a stands were not ordinary spectators who happened to have good seats. They were the kind of people whose presence at any event immediately changes the conversation about what that event means. So let's go through them one by one, because each name on this list tells you something specific about how far this story has traveled and how wide the circle of people it has reached has become. Andrew Garfield was there. If that name doesn't immediately connect for you, let me help. He is Spider-Man specifically. He is the Spider-Man from the Amazing Spider-Man films, the version of Peter Parker that a generation of fans grew up with, and the version that returned in Spider-Man No Way Home alongside the other two Spider-Men in one of the most emotionally overwhelming cinematic moments in recent memory. That film did historic numbers at the box office for reasons that anyone who sat in a theater and watched that third act already understands completely. But Garfield is not just a superhero franchise star. He is the kind of actor who takes on projects that challenge him, who has appeared in films like Tick, Tick, Boom, which earned him enormous critical recognition, and Hacksaw Ridge, the true story of a World War II soldier who served without ever carrying a weapon, a film that was simultaneously brutal and deeply moving. He appeared in The Social Network, one of the most celebrated films of its era, the story of how Facebook was built and the relationships it destroyed along the way. This is a man with serious artistic credentials across multiple genres, and he was sitting in the stands at Wimbledon watching Alex. Not because he was required to be there. Not because it was a scheduled appearance. Because something about this story pulled him in the same way it has pulled in millions of people who had never paid serious attention to tennis before this fortnight. Then there was Tom Hiddleston. And if you know anything about the Marvel Universe, you know exactly who Tom Hiddleston is because he has been playing Loki, the god of mischief, across multiple films and a television series for over a decade. He was the primary antagonist in the first Avengers film, the villain whose scheme brought the original team together, the character who in many ways launched the whole connected universe into what it eventually became. He has also done serious dramatic work completely outside the franchise world, including Kong Skull Island, which took him into blockbuster territory of a completely different kind. Hiddleston and Garfield, sitting in those Wimbledon stands watching Alex. Two of the most recognizable faces in global cinema present at a tennis match because the person playing in that match had generated the kind of gravitational pull that makes people rearrange their schedules to be in the room. But the guest list did not stop at Hollywood actors. Anna Wintour was there. And if you need to understand the significance of Anna Wintour being somewhere, here is the short version. She is the editor-in-chief of Vogue, a position she held from 1988 through 2025, which is a tenure so long and so dominant that the fashion world she shaped during those decades is essentially the fashion world as it currently exists. She is widely regarded as the most powerful figure in global fashion, full stop. Not one of the most powerful, the most powerful. There is a reason the film The Devil Wears Prada exists, and the reason is that the character at the center of it was inspired in significant part by the aura and the reputation of Anna Wintour. The film and its sequel gave millions of people who had no direct connection to the fashion industry a window into the kind of world she occupies and the kind of authority she carries within it. When Anna Wintour shows up somewhere, it means something. It means the thing she is showing up for has crossed a threshold from interesting to culturally significant in a way that her presence formally recognizes. She was at Wimbledon, watching Alex. Think about what that means in terms of where this story now sits in the broader cultural conversation. This is no longer confined to sports media or tennis circles or even the passionate Filipino community that has been following every point from the beginning. This has reached the very top of the global fashion and cultural establishment, and it has done so not because of a marketing campaign or a carefully arranged media strategy, but because a 21-year-old from Quezon City played tennis so beautifully and spoke about her journey so honestly that the most influential people in multiple industries felt compelled to be in the building. Simone Ashley was also in those stands. Her name might be most immediately associated with Bridgerton, the Netflix period drama that became one of the most watched series the platform had ever produced, where she stepped into one of the central roles and delivered a performance that made everyone pay attention. She has since appeared in the F1 film, which brought motorsport into a cinematic context that reached audiences far beyond the traditional racing fanbase. She was at Wimbledon for Alex. And then there is Maria Sharapova. This one carries a weight that the celebrity appearances, as significant as they are, cannot quite replicate. Because Sharapova is not a film star or a fashion icon. She is a former world #1 tennis player, a 5-time Grand Slam champion, someone who won Wimbledon at 17 years old, and went on to become one of the most recognizable athletes in the world across a career that spanned 2 decades. She knows exactly what it takes to do what Alex is doing. She knows what the grass feels like under pressure. She knows what center court sounds like when a crowd is fully behind you. She knows the specific weight of a Grand Slam moment from inside. And she said publicly that Alex is a real star. Not that she has potential. Not that she is promising. That she is a real star. And here is the detail that makes Sharapova's comment land differently from all the other celebrity reactions, the detail that transforms it from a generous compliment into a genuinely moving full-circle moment. Alex has a photograph. A photograph taken when she was young, when she was a child still figuring out who she wanted to be as a tennis player, still forming the ambitions and the dreams that would eventually carry her to Wimbledon. In that photograph, she is standing next to Maria Sharapova. The same Maria Sharapova, who just called her a real star. The idol is now the peer. The person who represented what was possible is now witnessing the possibility, being realized. There are not many moments in any athlete's journey that carry that particular quality of completeness, where the line between the child looking up and the adult being looked up to becomes visible in a single image. Alex has that moment now, and it belongs to her permanently. Billie Jean King also reached out. If that name requires context, here is what you need to know. Billie Jean King is not just a former world #1 tennis player. She is one of the most significant athletes in the history of sport, period. She fought for equal prize money for women in tennis at a time when the establishment was completely opposed to it. She won the Battle of the Sexes match against Bobby Riggs in 1973 in front of an audience of millions, a match that was as much a cultural moment as a sporting event. She has spent decades advocating for equality and inclusion in ways that have genuinely shaped the world of professional sport. When Billie Jean King says something about a tennis player, the history behind those words runs decades deep. She congratulated Alex and called the match a treat to watch. Coming from the woman who has done more for women's tennis than perhaps any other individual in history, that is not a casual compliment. That is a statement about the significance of what Alex is building and what her success means in the longer story of women's sport. And then there is Manny Pacquiao, 8-division world boxing champion, the most recognizable Filipino athlete in the history of global sport. A man who grew up in poverty in General Santos City and became a world champion in a way that made an entire nation understand something profound about what is possible regardless of where you start. You left a comment. He showed his support. And the significance of that moment goes beyond celebrity endorsement, because what you are looking at when you see Pacquiao's name alongside Alex's story is a passing of something between generations of Filipino greatness. 2 athletes from a same country, separated by sport and by era, connected by the specific and extraordinary experience of carrying a nation on your back on the world's biggest stages and refusing to put down. Pacquiao knows what it feels like when the whole of the Philippines is watching, and the pressure of that watching could either crush you or transform you. He has lived that. He has absorbed that weight across decades of fights in arenas around the world. And he sees in Alex someone who is beginning to understand it in her own way. When he says he is proud, he is not speaking as a celebrity lending credibility to a trend. He is speaking as someone who has walked a version of the same road and recognizes the footsteps. Now, let's step back and look at the full picture of what happened on Saturday, because the celebrity reaction only makes complete sense when you understand the quality of what Alex actually did on that court. This was not a match she survived. This was not a result that came from her opponent having a bad day at an inconvenient time. She beat the reigning Wimbledon champion, the world number 3, in straight sets, and she did it with a level of tactical control and competitive composure that had the match's statistics telling a story of genuine dominance. The first set lasted 84 minutes, which should tell you everything about the intensity of what was happening before any number is mentioned. It was a tiebreak that went all the way to 11 points to 9. Alex saved set points. Swiatek saved set points. Neither player was willing to surrender the set without a fight that stretched the limits of what a single set of tennis is supposed to contain. And when it finally ended, it ended because Alex was better in the moment that mattered most. The second set was 6-2. After everything that had happened in the first, Alex came out and immediately broke Swiatek's serve and never gave the champion a realistic path back into the match. When the final point was over, she let her racket drop from her hand, and then she cried. Right there on center court, with every camera pointed at her, she cried. And the on-court interview that followed is the reason Andrew Garfield and Tom Hiddleston and Anna Wintour and Simone Ashley and Maria Sharapova were all compelled to be in that building or react publicly to what they had witnessed. Because Alex didn't talk about tactics or statistics or preparation. She talked about being a kid in the Philippines. She talked about hitting balls after school every single day with her brother and her grandfather. She described herself as a child with ruffled socks and shoes that lit up when she walked and chubby cheeks who simply loved to play. She said that for someone like Swiatek with 6 Grand Slams, this achievement might seem modest. But for someone who grew up where she grew up, it was everything. And then she caught herself. She told the crowd she was not satisfied. She said being emotional didn't mean she was done. Next round, she said, let's go. Those 4 words, delivered with the match still fresh and the tears still real, were the moment when this story became something larger than tennis. Because that is not the behavior of someone who has achieved something and is content with it. That is the behavior of someone who has a very clear sense of where they are going, who has used this moment fully and completely, and is already turning toward the next one. It is genuinely rare in any athlete and in any sport, and the people watching, both inside the stadium and on screens all over the world, felt it. That is why the celebrities showed up. That is why the fashion icons were in the stands. That is why the boxing legend commented and the tennis legends reached out. Not because they were invited, because they were pulled. Because something genuine was happening, and genuine things, in a world full of carefully managed images and strategic appearances, are impossible to ignore. The broader significance of where Alex now sits in the draw is impossible to overstate. She is in the round of 16 at Wimbledon. She is the first Filipino player in history to be here. Not the first Filipina. The first Filipino. Male or female. In the entire open era of professional tennis, which stretches back to 1968, no player from the Philippines had ever reached this stage at a Grand Slam. And the path forward still contains enormous possibilities. The quarterfinals are there. The semifinals are there. The final is there. The Venus Rosewater dish, the trophy that Sharapova lifted herself, the trophy that Billie Jean King competed for, is theoretically within the frame of this tournament in a way it has never been for a Filipino player before. Alex has not talked about the trophy. She has not talked about the history she is making. She talks about the next match, the next opponent, the next round. That discipline, the refusal to be seduced by the narrative building around her while the tournament is still in progress, is itself one of the things that the legends who have been watching recognize from their own experience. You don't make deep runs at Grand Slams by thinking about how deep your run is getting. You make them by focusing completely on the match directly in front of you and trusting the process to take care of the rest. What you are watching when you watch Alex at this Wimbledon is a young woman from a country that the global tennis establishment had not historically taken seriously, doing things that nobody from that country had ever done, in front of some of the most influential people on the planet, and doing it on her own terms. With the Sampaguita on her visor. With Tagalogs stitched into the fabric. With her identity completely intact and completely present in every match she plays. She has never asked anyone to find her more palatable or more familiar or easier to market. She has simply shown up as exactly who she is, and the world has responded by sending its most famous faces to watch her play. From the child with the ruffled socks and the light-up shoes hitting balls with her grandfather after school in the Philippines to the round of 16 at Wimbledon with Andrew Garfield and Tom Hiddleston and Anna Wintour watching from the stands. That is the distance Alex has traveled. That is the size of what she has built. And on Monday, against Jasmine Paolini, she gets the chance to take one more step in a direction that nobody from her country has ever gone. The celebrities will be watching. The fashion world will be watching. The boxing legend will be watching. The tennis legends will be watching. The entire Philippines will be watching. And Alex will be doing what she always does. Showing up, competing, refusing to be satisfied, and making all of us feel like we are watching something we will be talking about for the rest of